What's happening, everybody? Thank you for being here at All Access Live with Kevin Rankin. Before we get started, I want you to do me a favor. Go to this link below. Go to youtube.com/@accesskevin. And if you're coming anywhere other than YouTube, you'll be able to subscribe to this channel. You can go back through and you can look at over 300 previous guests that we've had on the channel. You can also go ahead and see the upcoming guests that I have. Amazing guitarist Mike Stern's going to be on the show Thursday this week, September 12th. We've got a lighting wizard, Kerry Bechtel. You might know him from the Dan Reed Network days, the visionary lighting director. Lots of great guests. But you can go back and you can look at the archives. And if you want, you can become a member. Doing so, if you become a member, you'll see some other archive content that is only privy to subscribed members, people that have actually signed up in different levels and tiers of support. We'll get prize packages out to you. Certain people will be get some drawings for upcoming tour shows that we have with the Flock of Seagulls. I've got prize packages, sticker packs, drumsticks, and laminates, all sorts of great stuff. So subscribe to the channel, become a member, make sure you like and share this. And also, if you have not been made aware, if you're a guitarist and you're interested in playing or getting repairs done, and you're outside of the Oregon area, you can go to this link below. Go to 5starguitars.com. You're going to see that everything there, if you go to 5starguitars.com/all-access-live, gets you 15% off of discounts, and there's no sales tax in Oregon. So get yourself some guitars, get some repairs done, let them know that I sent you, and they've been amazingly supportive of this show. So now, this guest today not only is an incredible drummer, but he's also been a trendsetter in the NFL sports system, where people have been. You're familiar with the best rally in previous years of having bands in college and high school days. The NFL getting support by a drumline was a fairly new technology, and we've all seen the cheerleaders. There's none more sexy than my next guest, and so I don't think he came with a cheerleader's outfit, but he might have a little bit of Seahawks paraphernalia. Keith Rousu, good to see you, buddy. How are you doing?
Oh, that's funny because I was a cheerleader in college too, not just a drummer. So
I didn't know that. Okay,
welcome. Thank you for having me. Welcome everybody else who's watching. But yeah, my first gig in pro sports, ironically, was being a professional cheerleader for 2 seasons for the Seattle Sonics.
I knew that's why I thought you were so vibey and sexy, man. That's a beautiful thing. You still doing all the athletics? You work out the aerobics and you're still able to toss some people up in the air. I know you can do that. Actually, the Hawks the last 2 years, I think, have actually had male cheerleaders and they are the Seahawks dancers now. I think that was the time that they did the transition, right? So it was the Seagulls for a long time,
Correct.
And now it's the Seahawks dancers. All right, so just in case the Blue Thunder thing doesn't work out for you, then you can swap back over to your old traditional gig.
I am not much of a dancer, brother. I'm not much of a dancer. I'll admit that freely. I'm great at playing the music to make people dance, but I'm not a great dancer myself. I was just
Well,
a big enough guy to get drafted to throw girls around as a
yeah,
stunt squad member.
and you're a Seattle guy, right? You grew up there, right? So that's your alma mater. And
Correct. Yeah, I grew up in the outskirts of the Woodinville wine country before it became the Woodinville wine country it is today, and graduated from Woodinville High School. Went to the University of Washington for my undergraduate degrees and and then actually got a master's degree from Seattle University. So very much a hometown Washington guy.
right on, yeah. Well, I would say that I think the first time you and I met was when the Blue Thunder was there in the brand new stadium that the Seahawks put together. So I've been a Seahawks season ticket holder since 2002, the very first year that the new stadium went in place. I was so floored when I saw that my passion in drums was highly showcased by an incredibly talented group of people that were pregame, mid-game, post-game, everything that had to do with the sort of the crowd experience. You were a pivotal part of this. I remember tracking you down saying, what is this all about? I'd never even seen a drum line. I mean, I did drumline in college, right? And our marching band in my alma mater at Montana State did not have the moxie that you guys had. You guys had swagger, and you brought like this modern vibe, and dance to the show, because it's not like you guys stand there and mark time. You're dancing, and so how did this even come about? How did you get involved with the Blue Thunder? How did they get you to back them as the director?
So I guess it goes all the way back to probably my second professional certificate after my bachelor's degree at the University of Washington, which happened to be in going back for sports management.
Okay.
I'd been playing in rock bands all through college and tried to chase the rock and roll dream, and felt like I got close, but didn't quite get there. And just one day, I was like, "What do I need to do?" And I was literally at a Huskies football game, and a professional certificate program popped up through the University of Washington Extension, and you had to have a bachelor's degree to apply for it, but it was a 1-year study in sports management. And both my mom and my sister turned to me and said, "You need to do that." And
Yeah.
vicariously through that experience, we had a guest speaker one day who said they were going to start a drum line for the Seattle Seahawks as part of a fan development engagement. And I just raised my hand and said, "How many people are you looking for?" And little did she know that, or I know that it was like, hey, a drum line's a lot of people. I know some people. And so next thing you know, another gentleman in our class got the internship in the department, and so he started talking to me during classes, during our breaks, and who should I talk to? So I was pointing at my former instructors, and friends of mine who had music degrees, and I was just looking to play drums. I love
Yeah.
football, I love drumming. It was a pivotal part of my college experience, playing 4 years in the University of Washington Husky marching band before becoming the cheerleader, like I said,
Yeah.
and I just wanted to play drums and, play football or watch football. And next thing you know, ironically, I went to dinner with my mom and, came back and they said, "Hey, we want to talk to you. I want to give you an interview." And so, all right, came like a week later, came down here to then Seahawks Stadium, now Lumen Field. And
Right.
my former roommate from college and my brother-in-law came down, and we all played cadences and, put the sprinkler in, which was the big thing that the receivers were doing when they
Yeah.
scored touchdowns back in the
Right.
early 2000s. And yeah, we
Yep.
put it in a cadence and then started playing. And I knew they were hooked when the two catalysts who hired me kept looking at each other, and they did this talk of, "I can't believe they just did the sprinkler while they're playing." And they're because
Yeah.
we kept playing, like drummers do. We had this sequence worked out, and I knew that they were hooked. And so my then brother-in-law and college roommate left to go back to their day jobs, and I continued my interview. And a week later, I found out that I was the choice to be the first director of the Seahawks Blue Thunder drumline.
Unbelievable, man. How big was the line at that point? How many people do you have?
We started out with 28 drummers,
Okay.
and my former college roommate, Mike, uh, was pivotal with me in we because he was a couple years younger than me in college, and so we spanned about 7 years total of drummers, and we recruited under the radar and literally built the group with 25 of the 28 drummers were from the University of Washington drumline from the
Wow.
7 years that we covered it. And then just a few select friends that we knew who could drum well. And then, of course, my sister was integral in being part of it. And she learned to play the cymbals as part of it with my, you know,
Wait a minute. She didn't
with
play
my
before she
brother-in-law.
actually got into the line?
No, she played French horn and trumpet, and
Unbelievable.
we played piano growing up. But because my brother-in-law was wanting to play snare drum with us, and she said, "Hey, I've got hands. I can learn how to play cymbals. I want to do this." And we're like, "Why
I
not?" So literally,
I say
there
this
that it was
surprised.
28 members.
I may have even met Lisa, your sister, before I got to meet you, because those first years of the Blue Thunder, anybody that saw the line at that point could not help but see that smile. Right? She was the most like joyful, just cheerful person on the planet. Right? I mean, I could not believe how like warm her smile was and very welcoming. I mean, I remember talking to her after games and she just made you feel like you were part of that family. And I ask about how big it was because that really was what I saw Blue Thunder becoming. There's a community part that people might not recognize. If you go to a game, yeah, you see the Blue Thunder is omnipresent everywhere. You're up the 12th man flag, you're there on the field, at the first quarter breaks but people don't realize that you're so heavily involved in the community. You're a part of that family in so many areas. I know that you do a lot of charity events, a lot of school things, and so when you commit to the Blue Thunder drumline, there's an obligation of a lot more than just those 8-10 home games, right? So tell me a little bit about what the Blue
One
Thunder gets involved with.
Yeah, absolutely. It is a community thing, and we take the Seahawks experience of a game day and bring it out to community events, from charity walks, for cancer, for research and that kind of stuff, as the heart and stroke walk, the colorectal walk. I mean, you pick it, we go out and drum at it, and it takes that Seahawk feel and support. And it, and part of it's with that 12, that sense of the 12s, and that is our community, and that's our tribe here at Lumen Field, and in support of our team. And we want to be bringing that energy and that vibe to every event we do. And we do anywhere between 85 and 105 outside appearances a year. And it's not everybody, of course.
Unbelievable.
Sometimes it's 4 or 6
Sure.
members, but it's just one of those things we do, and it's been an integral part of our program here, supporting the team and keeping our team alive in the off season. Keeping that Seahawks brand presence in support of our community, and it's been great, and the way we've been able to integrate it into so many different facets of our community, from with rock bands, or with charity events, or even government events, and just and even conventions that come through town. Sometimes even cruise ships. We'll go out and play on
Oh,
a cruise ship before it departs. From
really?
from Seattle to Alaska. Yeah, you never know what's going to happen on a given year. To be honest, it's pretty wild.
Well, it's funny that you mentioned the rock bands, and we'll get into some of the rock drummers that you've had as guests. But I should point out, anybody that's watching this and that sees maybe that the green in the background. Yes, Keith is actually at the Seahawks facility right now. They're in the room where he's got these all the different drums. You mentioned that you've actually been taking wraps off, and you got new surprise wraps for the next game. Is that right?
Yeah, that is correct. We just switched to drum companies and got new drums. We debuted them on Sunday this last week with a throwback wrap look. But our current model look will be debuted at the next home game on the 22nd. And we're excited to partner with Pearl and play their drums. And we had a great run with Yamaha and have nothing but great things to say about their product. It was just time to get some new drums, and Pearl gave us a deal that we couldn't refuse to switch over, and our members were really fired up to play the product. And the harnesses are super comfy, and I hope so, because the drums are pretty heavy. I'm not gonna
Yeah, no
lie,
kidding,
but
man.
what do I care? I don't have to wear them. I just have to direct everything. No, I'm just kidding. I do play some gigs around, and I know that I'm going to
I've
feel it.
seen.
But
Yeah.
you know what? The drums are great, and we're excited to work with them and just have a new look. And I mean, we are entering our third decade with the team, so it's time for a new
Unreal.
updated look. Yeah, this is season 21 for us,
Oh
so it's
man.
been a wild ride so far.
And okay, so yeah, you mentioned that you went from Yamaha to Pearl. I know you got a fantastic Pearl drummer coming up to join you next month at one of the games. Dear friend of mine, for sure. I'm excited about that. I don't know if you can even talk about that, but
Yeah,
how about cymbal companies? Are you?
we can tease a little bit.
Yeah, all right, all right. Well, we'll talk about Nate Morton then in just a little bit. But the cymbal companies, are you working with the same cymbal company?
We've well, I mean, yes and no. Over the
Okay,
years, I'll say, Sabian has been very, very good to us. And again, nothing but great respect to them and their product. That I'm a big fan of their product. I still own plenty of their cymbals, and but we have switched over to a company called Centent Cymbals USA, and they're made in China, but they are literally they offered me something that no one else could, and that is they made the cymbals directly to my specifications.
yeah,
For the crash cymbals that we play, I did some research and development with them for a couple of years and found some sounds that I liked. And I said, okay, can we do this finish with this hand hammer, with this thing, keep the bell uncupped and unlathed? So it's just raw. And then, ultimately we came in with a product, and I'll give all the props to Arthur, who
Arthur
actually lived
Stones, baby.
locally. Yeah, he lived locally here, and then now he lives outside Atlanta, if I recall correctly. But Arthur's been great in coordinating this, and made just a beyond ridiculous product for us, and so
Uh,
much so that we just added mini hi-hats, also made to my specs. And
oh
so
man.
to be able to say, hey, I want this many grams, I want this type of punch, for the hammering and the leaving, and to like a fully custom cymbal, and at a solid price, just to get a good quality product and also get exposure for his brand. And it's been an awesome partnership so far, and I don't see us diverting from that.
Yeah, Arthur came through in a pinch for me about 2 months ago. We were back east, actually had a gig, and the backline company my band we don't use a ride cymbal, right? So the backline company was supposed to know that I had 4 crashes and hats and a China, and they showed up with no China, 1 crash, and 3 ride cymbals. And so Arthur showed up,
Wow.
and he said, or he texted me on the way in. We'd never met in person. We just traded a lot of messages back and forth. And he said, "Is there anything you need?" And I said, yeah, I'm gonna have a crash cymbal, something I can round out this kit with. And he showed up with a whole package of everything of his collection, and I got to try their stuff out. And yes, great cymbals, sentient cymbals, and Arthur Stones, man. If you're watching, Arthur, props to you, not only for representing a great product, but obviously he understands the way that the community that you are involved in, it's how important it is to develop relationships, right? So, I, getting to that with you and the community, um, it's not just the Seattle Seahawks that you've worked with. You just wrapped up a career of 16 years with Seattle Sounders. Is that right?
Yeah, that is correct. I started a marching band on behalf of Drew Carey's desire, as his part of ownership at the beginning of the Sounders franchise. And in June, I hung it up after 16 years, and trying to be, I actually put in my retirement notice last year, but they asked me to stay through the off season and transition to the new co-directors, which I'm have been part of the group for a long time, and I feel like the group is in a great space. They played really well this year. They still playing really well. I'm very proud of that organization and that band and all the people in it. And it was a tough decision. It's like leaving a baby.
Yeah.
But I also had to. I could tell I was grinding myself a little bit too much. And my youngest son is getting older and more activities, and so trying to be a little bit more of a responsible dad to some degree, and it just felt like it was time and a good time to walk away with the band being in such a great space, and so I did, and I still miss it. I don't regret it, but I do miss it. I think that's probably the best way to put it.
Sure, man. I'm sure. Well, 16 years is a commitment. I mean, you developed a relationship with the people there and the organization, and I'm sure, but you won't be missing it too much because this year you're just now starting out the new season. You guys had the first home game on Sunday a couple of days ago. Great win against the Broncos. Congrats. And,
big
dude, you're such a big part of the quote unquote 12th man. Yeah. I mean, people that are at the games, they realize this. If you've watched the game on TV and you guys most people have heard about Lumen Field being one of the loudest stadiums anywhere in the planet, right? To support a team. But there's a huge reason for that, right? You've got up the 12th man flag for that game. Like every single break, you're up there doing stuff to help sort of support the crowd experience. And I think it would be remiss for anyone, to not give credit to what the Blue Thunder have done. And a big part of that is now that the last several years you've been bringing in special guests, so I alluded to that with Nate Morton coming up on on that game on October 27th. You've got against the Buffalo Bills, which is exciting.
Yep.
But years past, man, you've had incredible guests too, like some of the biggest drummers on the planet in history. Maybe tell me about the first guest because the first one I saw, I think, was Alan White. That's when you had me come up and sit by Alan and play some drums. Yeah. But I've seen Rockin' Field up there. I've seen Matt Cameron. And so tell me about some of the other drummers.
Yeah, so I had this idea way back in the very beginning of the drumline, and it was kind of based off of the Los Angeles Lakers, watching the NBA, and you see they cut over to the crowd shot of Jack Nicholson in the front row, or pick your favorite actor or your favorite rock musician or whatever, or like New York Knicks had Spike Lee always in the front. Right. Well, I was like, we have such a rich history of music here in Seattle. How do we not capture that as part of what we do? And I pulled the Wayne Gretzky move, which is, you miss 100% of the shots you don't take. And I just started shooting some shots out there, and it really hit that first NFL championship game. And Osher, the original drummer for Heart, came and sat in with us on that day. And it was a cool experience, moment. Mike lived out by me. Mike from Heart.
Oh, yeah, from Heart. Yep.
And he came over, and we met up at his house out in Woodinville, and I was still living out there, ironically. And so Mike, I didn't know, but he was a rudimental snare drum champion. He was ready for the job, and this was before we used the drum kit with guest drummers. So we had quite a few, he was the first kind of proof of concept. And then from, through the next 4 or 5 years, I was combing through people who are coming through Jazz Alley, people who are coming through on tour. And ultimately, I just happened to cross paths with some people like Scott Rockenfield from Queensryche, and Scott and I became really good friends. And so ultimately Bluth played with Queensryche a few theater. And we probably 12 or 14 shows with Queensryche outside of Game Day with Scott. And then, then of course we had Bobby Jarzombeck, who you and I saw at the Showbox, and another great story of us behind the scenes that maybe we'll tell later about Dave Lombardo, who didn't sit in yet, but I'm holding out hope that at some point before he hangs up the sticks, he'll still come up here and drum with us. But ultimately I got to see Will Calhoun come through and play, and Will was very formative for me as a drum set player as a kid. And I'll never forget that. Who doesn't know Cult of Personality? Of course. Song is so well known, and Will's drumming is so powerful and funky. And it was
Incredible drummer.
awesome that I got to, share a moment with him, and Steve Smith from Journey, and as well as Alan White from S. And Alan became a very close personal friend. And Alan never saw a loss in 12 guest drumming dates with us, and it was really, really tough when he passed away. And but that first game of the season last year, we celebrated him with a performance of Changes that I wrote out for it, with a little tag of Z for to honor the perf too. But it's just been fun. And then for a few years we couldn't do it. I didn't have the support from the rest of the front office above me to necessarily have guest drummers. But outside COVID, at that kind of relaunch, I think, can we do this again? And my boss, who's been awesome in supporting this idea literally for the last 3 years now, why don't we try this again? And so we relaunched it with arguably one of the most popular drummers in the world, Chad Smith from Red Hot Chili Peppers. Chad was one of my favorite, again, kind of like Will, was just one of my favorite drummers growing up. And so to have that moment with Chad was, absolutely bonkers for me. I was just like trying to gather inside, like keep it together, while trying to have a guy with ultimate respect. And at the end of the day, he was like, man, thank you, it was amazing, loved it, and like told a bunch of other people about it, and it kind of spun off into a blabbermouth story, and next thing you know, here we are branching out further with some of the connections. And so now we're at John Tempesta from The Cult and White Zombie came in, Charlie Benante from Anthrax and Pantera came in, and Matt Cameron, of course.
So let's talk about that.
Pearl Jam, Soundgarden legend. There's more, and it's just been it stacks on top crazily. It's nuts.
Let's go back to the Charlie story, right? So Pantera comes through. Before Pantera came up, right? So how did you get Charlie up there originally? Because you did Indians and Walk. Is that right? Is that what you had?
Yeah.
Back when he came out to play with you guys. Okay, and so
back in
years ago,
January of 2023. And only about a month and a half before that was it known that they were going to do the Pantera reunion, and Charlie got slated to be, the replacement for Vinny, and R.I.P. Big fan of Pantera and Vinny, powerful drumming that just had swing and style and power at the same time. And so
my favorite metal band.
Charlie and I talked, and I said, hey, what do you want to play? And he goes, man, can we play a Pantera lick? And I said, hey, Walk is easy for a drum line to carry melody and make happen. So here we are, we perform it, and at the end of it, it was just awesome, felt so good. And I just said, hey man, it'd be a lot of fun if we could do this together sometime. And he's like, oh yeah, that'd be great. And then that was kind of it up until about 2 months ago.
Yeah. How did that come to be, right? Did you reach out when you found out that Metallica and Pantera coming through Seattle, or
there was a text message, Charlie and I've stayed in contact, and lo and behold, it was one of those moments of, hey, remember how we had that conversation? And he said, yeah, I do, as a matter of fact. And then the response came from him with a couple of phone numbers I didn't know, and said, hey, let's talk Walk, Seattle, and Run. And pretty much somebody
hang
said,
tight,
hey,
hang tight for just a sec. Hold on,
Kate,
1 sec.
And it was
Keith. Hold on, 1 sec.
Girlfriend, long time.
Hold on, Keith. Hold on, I'm going to stop you for a second because your Wi-Fi is breaking up. I want you to stop for just a sec. We got to let that buffer because that's a cool story, right? So we broke for a sec. You were saying you got this text message with a few other numbers. All right, so give me that story again.
Yeah, are we good connected here?
Yep, we're good.
All right. So yeah, I got a text message with from Charlie with two random numbers I didn't know, and ultimately it was one of them happened to be Kate, who is Phil Anselmo's, the singer for Pantera's, longtime girlfriend and manager of the band, and
Okay.
said, "So what's this idea?" And I said, "Well, we could play from the guitar solo end of it through that double chorus and through the outro of the tune." If you'll have us. And then someone else responds and says, and I think his name's Dave, and says, "Hey, do you have proof of this idea?" And so I took video of us playing it with Charlie in the upper deck of the stadium and sent it to them. And it was a mutual admiration society, essentially.
Nice. Oh, that's
And
sweet.
and they were like, "Well, okay, hold on, and let's figure out some logistics. We'll be back in touch." So another month and a half goes by, and I haven't heard anything, and I'm like, "This is dead in the water. This is not happening." I said, "You know what, though? I'm going to do what I do best. That's preemptive strike." And so I went online. I found a recent performance of Walk that a fan had filmed a couple weeks before. I think it was in Minneapolis, and I made my arrangement of Walk mirror that arrangement. And then we
Nice.
had a rehearsal before our first preseason game, and I came in with the music stacks and said, "Everybody, take 15 minutes, learn this real quick, refresh it. Veterans, most of you know this. Rookies, drinking from the fire hose a little bit." And at the end of 15 minutes, we're going to perform it 3 times. I'm going to film the third one, and I'm going to send it to them and say, "We're ready if you'll have us."
Nice.
And that's what we did. And about 6 minutes later, I get a response from Charlie that says, "That is sick. We play it slower than that, but the tempo will be established when you come in." And I was like, "That's an
When you
interesting
come in.
response."
Yes, that is a yes.
And I mean, I know he's not the only arbiter of the truth with relations to the Pantera camp,
Sure.
but I think at that point we had put the best foot forward. Fast forward to about 3 days before the show.
3 days.
3 days.
Okay.
So
Yeah.
show's Friday. It was Tuesday. I get a call at about 11 o'clock. I literally just got done doing a corporate partner golf tournament with the drumline, playing a little bass drum and getting my thump on. And I get a phone call out of nowhere. Again, a number I hadn't recognized. I answer the phone. It says, "Hey Keith, this is Dave from Pantera. We're a full go for Friday. Let's talk logistics." And so the questions were hilarious to me, because he goes, "Our biggest issue, I think, is green room space and where we're going to put your equipment." And I said,
Wow.
I just started laughing. He's like, "Why are you laughing?" I said, "Dave, it's our stadium."
Yeah. My gear's already there. It's in this room that you're sitting in right now.
Quite literally. And he goes, "Well, doesn't that make this so easy?"
Yeah, no
He's like,
doubt, man.
"Okay, I don't know how we don't do this, and let's talk numbers." And ultimately, it settled out that we were going to have 18 members perform
Oh
Walk
my God.
with Pantera on Metallica's stage to open for Metallica, first night here in Seattle. And it was pure rock insanity. I have nothing but love and respect for the Pantera camp. They were so gracious to us. We got here, we did a sound check. We got done with the sound check, and Rex Brown, the bass player, came over and said, "You guys are amazing. This sounds so great. You need to come into the song earlier than you are now. And you also need to start spread out over the stage, take it over, like really own
Wow.
it."
No doubt.
And
That's amazing. Oh my
and
God.
I mean, talk about like the words of blessing, right? And
Yeah.
um, soon enough, we'll have a full video of the performance from our perspective as drummers. I had friends who were in the audience that day taking film from all over, and we had some GoPros on us. So We were going to have some really cool, unique looks. But I'll tell you what, it's pretty awesome that they allowed us and gave us that opportunity. And again, nothing but love and respect for those guys and everyone involved with the Pantera camp. It was super surreal. Like, I got to live my dream that I never got to. And even though it was for one night, I mean, I literally played in front of 60,000 people, opening for Metallica with Pantera, one of my favorite bands, on one of my favorite songs. And I have video proof, I have photo proof, and it's in my home. And it was absolutely incredible. I think I'm beaming through the camera now to everybody who's watching this. It was just so electric and so unexpected and so amazing. And man, it was as good as going to the Super Bowl and winning the Super Bowl. It was one of those moments that you're just like, wow. Top 5 moment as a musician, top 3 moment in my life, arguably. Besides my boys being born and getting married to my wife, winning that Super Bowl 48, and now like playing alongside Charlie. And my favorite part too was getting at the end, and I ended up on the stage facing where my wife was sitting with my buddies, like who I had tickets for. I bought tickets for the show 2 years ago, not knowing who was going to open or anything like that. So my wife got to come sit with some of my best friends. And so I got to be able to have that moment kind of vicariously point towards them in the crowd. I didn't see them, of course. I mean, there's so many people. Yeah. And then I got done and I turn around and Charlie points his fist out, and we bump fists, and I was like, I just go, "You're my man, bro." And he's like, "You're my man. Thank you. This was awesome." And like, we had that moment on stage. And then we were off, and but everyone just absolutely, the electricity was palpable. And I mean, now I can arguably say that I opened for Metallica, and bucket list check, baby.
You played drums for Pantera, dude, in front of 60,000 people, open for Metallica. You know what? So not only did you and the 18 people that you were on stage with have a bucket list item that you could never have fathomed, right, as a drummer growing up, but 60,000 people, their lives were enriched by what you did, and every dude on stage, that Rex and Charlie were loving it, and Anselmo, I'm sure, loved it, and there's an experience that they would never have had you not reached out and made this happen. So props to you for being, the fortitude and being tenacious and having, thought through this a little bit. If you didn't do the prep, it wouldn't have happened, most likely, right? But you made this happen. Yeah, you killed that. Bro.
I mean, I got, again, to give them all the props, and Charlie being a partner in crime, certainly, to help, I think, push it over the goal line. Certainly championing it and saying it was so cool. And then the emails I got from the guys afterward. And ironically now, they're collectively calling me the Viking from hell. They're the Cowboys from hell, and now I'm the Viking from hell. So it's pretty funny that I now have a Pantera nickname.
That's not the last time that something like this is going to happen for you. Now you realize that, right? Because you're part of their sort of entourage, and something's that's going to lend itself other ways. I know you're a metal guy. I've known that, ever since you and I first met. I mean, you're a metal guy through and through. We shared some metal experiences, right? So,
yes, sir.
And I don't know if you knew how that sort of materialized when we got to hang at that time, but I'll set the stage. Back even before I was playing with the Flag of Seagulls, I was with the Animotion touring. We played with a whole bunch of bands, including Flock, and one of my favorite people on the planet, Mike Davis, bass player for Drumarama. We're in Buffalo, New York. We're flying back to Portland, or we're going to LA. And I was heading up to Portland, and he said, "Yeah, I got to go right back out on the road and do the next 6 months." And I said, "Drumarama's doing like 6 months straight of shows?" And he said, No. I play with Halford." And I said, "Rob Halford?" And he said, "Yeah." And I said, I've known this guy for 10 years, and I had no idea that he was in Halford's band. And he said, "Dude, it's the first date of the tour, man. You should come up to the show." And I said, "Okay, I got to make this happen. I got to see my buddy playing with the metal god," right? And not even knowing that Dave Lombardo's band Film is opening for Halford at this show. And he said, I'll hook you up, man. I'll put you on the list. You know, like you have anybody else that wants to go. All of my Judas Priest buddies were out of town, and you and I had talked metal previous. And I said, dude, we need to catch up. You need to come out and see this show. And I knew Bobby was playing drums on the gig, but I didn't realize that Lombardo was opening. And I remember, Mike took us over to the bus and had us check out the bus a little bit. Right. And then we may or may not have started to have some drinks. This is prior to me getting sober. and so the cool thing, I don't know if you remember this, on the buses, Rob had his own bus. And a lot of people think, oh, yeah, okay, so he's the prima donna lead singer, right? He's got to have his own thing. No, he's got a crew so the crew and the band are the non-sober guys. Rob's the only sober guy who's had a lot of sobriety in his life. And rather than even curb any of their enthusiasm, he's like, you guys do your thing. You have your own thing. I'll take my bus and you guys can have the party bus. And so that's where Mike, and he was showing us this, and it's where we got to talk to Bobby for the first time, and Mike D. Then we go to the show. Unreal, right? So
that was a great show.
Unreal. And we're sitting at the bar, and who's behind us but Dave Lombardo, right? People know him from Slayer, but that happened to be that he was up there doing, film, his own solo gig, or his individual
project.
His side project, exactly. And then we tied some on, and just, I think there's some photo proof, or thank God there's no video proof, but it was a silly night. We were, because you and I were like two little kids. Like, look at who we're with,
Yeah. But I remember that, because I remember we were talking. I was because when we realized it was Dave.
Yeah.
I was just like, man, I'd love to have 5 minutes talking to that guy's ear, man. Just, he was such one of my first double bass drummer influences, and along with Lars from Metallica, and you really have the kind of those quintessential guys, Vinny and Pantera, and then you've got Slayer and Dave. And so I remember saying that as here we are having a round of drinks poured for us and made for us, and then quite literally, I remember we turned around and you didn't skip a beat, and you just said, "Hey, Dave, meet Keith. Keith, meet Dave. We're drummers. Let's talk."
That's right, man.
And Dave said, "What are you guys drinking?" I turned around, and we got us another round of beverages, and to add to the one we were going to drink. And he joined us, and he ended up, I remember he talked with us the entire Halford set. It was, I was thinking, I was hoping to have me. It'd be awesome to just have 5 minutes and tell him, man, you were such an influence on me. Little did we know that his kids were going to RCC, Riverside Community College, in the drumline down there. And so we had that instant connection, and it was a really great time. And then of course you got to hang with Bobby, and such a great guy. And Bobby and I still are in contact to this day too.
And he's killing it.
And he's killing it with George Strait.
Strait, of all people, one of the greatest metal drummers I've ever seen, and he's out there playing with George Strait on the biggest arena tours of, right.
And I saw him here at Lumen Field last year. He called me up and said, "Hey, you got to come to the show." And so I brought my wife, and she was like, "I can't believe you're at a country show."
Right. But you know what? Is it really a country show? It's a rock show, man. I mean, it's big production. It's as rock and roll show as it gets, right? There's just twang to it.
Absolutely. There's a little twang to it, but that's about it. I mean, it's full production, and I'll be danged if George doesn't sound great.
Yeah, man. I'm not a big country guy at all. I was in Nashville for the first time over the weekend, actually. Played a gig just right by there. And so I had to go down on Broadway, and, and I figured I was looking forward to seeing some traditional country. I just thought, this is really cool, man. I'm going to go down and see. And it was really hard to find. Honestly, there were 200,000 people there on Broadway, and all of them were jamming out to Don't Stop Believin' and Pour Some Sugar on Me. And I was thinking, this is not the same Nashville that I've heard about, but that's what bachelorette parties want to hear. Right. So that's what a lot of it was. And everywhere I looked, it was a bachelorette party. It was crazy, but I did find little pockets, and I found amazing players, and I'm grateful for a few of the experiences that I got to just sit and, just soak in some real talent, man. I mean, these guys, talking to some of the guys that are locals, where you could see that every ounce of sweat that was coming off them was just dripping with talent. These guys were all amazing Berkeley players, and they're playing for $50 in tips. They don't get paid on the gig.
Yeah.
It's just like whatever tips they get, they split them up. And he said, on average, we're getting $50 in tips. And I said, for like what, an hour set? No, we're playing 4 hours for $50.
Yeah.
And in hopes
Gigging
that
hard, man.
Yeah, buddy. In hopes that they're going to go back on a tour. And so props to the hardworking dudes. And, again, tying this back into what you do, I mean, the amount of work you talked about, these experiences that you guys have where you do 80 to 110 events a year. The link below, that if you guys are listening to this and you can't see, I'm going to point it out. If you go to Seahawks.com/drumline/blue-thunder, you can see that you can actually book the Blue Thunder to do events. You can do private events. You can do birthday parties. You can do, corporates. You can do charity events. So you guys are like, your gig for hire, hopefully. And I know that you're maybe
weddings, celebrations of life. Believe
amazing.
it or not, we have done them all.
What is the craziest and most bizarre event that you guys have been hired for?
Oh, that's I truly probably a polar plunge.
Oh, okay.
And for the Special Olympics, and simply because we did have some members who decided to, it was the last year of our dynasty drums, the first drums we played.
Oh, yeah.
And they said, "Hey, boss, can we do this?" And I said, "If you guys are willing to, go for it." And we had 3 or 4 guys like literally drum into the water and then dunk into the water and came out.
Oh, that's awesome. That is great, man. That's probably
the most crazy thing. I mean, we've done some really great stuff, though. I mean, we played for the Special Olympics opening ceremonies a couple years ago. That was a wonderful, wonderful thing. And we formed the tunnel for all the athletes to come out through, and that was after performing with DJ Marshmello and Alan Stone. Wow. As this really kind of hybrid cool thing. I've done a lot of the charity stuff that helps keep music in schools, and raise funds for Music Matters, things like that are just so warm and fuzzy, if you will, to the community of musicians, as well as those that are up and coming, and hopefully will continue the legacy of Blue Thunder whenever I'm done with it, or the various sports teams, groups that are in not only our city but around the nation, and hopefully around the world. Hopefully that influence will grow, as we've seen happen to some degree over the years. But I really am hopeful that I'm just a catalyst of something that continues on after I'm gone.
That's a good legacy, brother. You mentioned your influence too. I know that you've been involved in a lot of other drum lines outside in the NFL, right? So you've been consulting for a bunch of other ones as well?
Yeah, I mean, I started a thing called the Pro Sports Music Association, and kind of as a way to give recognition to the musicians that work really hard, for each team, and have built this collaborative network amongst the directors of the various sports teams groups across not just the NFL but the NBA, and even some in NHL, some in Major League Soccer, some in up in Canada in the Canadian football leagues. So I've done some consulting, but really it's about sharing ideas and not necessarily getting paid to go out and do it. But, I've made my way through a fair share of helping some guys get things started, and avoid pitfalls that I kind of fell into in the very beginning of not really knowing what I was doing. And again, I'm not in competition with these guys or gals. It's about being supportive and collaborative, and not competitive. And it's been fun to see some of them grow and do different things and share ideas, and to have a friend to arguably just to pick up the phone and say, "Hey man, I'm having troubles with this. How's the best way out you would handle this?" And just spitball, and not necessarily tell them the best thing to do, but to create that sense of conversation at a high level. So, we're all doing things in a similar fashion. And the fun part is like sometimes, we'll have musicians move. I've had the last few years, I had drummers who played in the San Francisco 49ers drum line, or the Jacksonville Jaguars drum line. We've got a guy now who played in the Miami Heat drum line who moved up here. It's just kind of funny and small world stuff that, hey, if I'm moving to this city, I've got guys who call me and, hey, I'm moving to this. Who do I talk to about getting plugged in Tennessee? And I'm moving from Pittsburgh, or I'm moving from Detroit to Chicago. Who do I talk to? And so it's been fun to be able to make those reference points and also coach and collaborate, and it's been fun. I mean, it's I'd never thought that it's something that I would do,
Right. Yeah.
but I mean, I have such great support from my team, and I think I mean, I hate to toot my own horn because I'm not really that guy, but I mean, I think I'm an effective and smart leader, and I've learned a lot over the years, and I'm not afraid to share that knowledge, but also not be judgmental while I do it.
Yeah.
Because everybody does things differently. I trust that, my buddy Vince and Steelers drumline, knows the Pittsburghers just like I know the people of Seattle and the 12s, and I know my vibe of my city, and I tailor my program to try and engage them the best. And I hope that, they're doing that the same way. But, the operational side of things is where, the sharing of the knowledge is the best. And how do you, build a good structure that, is sustainable for the group and for the long term. And I think all of us want our music groups and entities to last longer than all of us. And hopefully we get to do that. But certainly I feel blessed that I've been able to do this as long as I have. Even if it ends tomorrow, it's been an awesome ride. And, and I'm never going to stop drumming. I'm never going to stop creating. But I'm certainly not done yet.
Yeah. Oh man, you reminded me actually when you were talking about the athletes and some of these different players too. Bucket list for me, one of the most amazing experiences that I remember having with Blue Thunder and you, as you guys toured after the Hawks won the Super Bowl. So you were touring with the Lombardi Trophy, then you came here to Portland, and my favorite player, man, Doug Baldwin, showed up having chops. The dude had played drums in high school, so you had him get up there and play snare drum. And I remember talking to him up there on that deck, right? You had the Lombardi Trophy there in the art museum, and you were out there playing with Dougie Fresh, man. That was amazing, dude. And it was had you known that he was a drummer before, or did he come up and approach you?
He came up and approached me, and
right.
it was just I guess good vibes breeding good vibes, and Doug is awesome. I saw him this last Sunday on the field because they celebrated the Legends weekend for the season kickoff, and so we got to have a quick high five and good to see you, buddy, for a hot minute there. But we'll talk about it. Great guy, unexpected. But it's kind of fun that we've been through some events over the years, and some of our alumni players actually played the drums, and so we've had some guys come through and like sit in with us at various events that they might be at, and just trade some solos or whatever, or come thump, and it's just a lot of fun. Everyone just has a good time with it.
When you see Doug again, you make sure you drop the name of the podcast, because I actually tried to reach out to his foundation. I felt like when Doug Baldwin left Seahawks, retired as a Seahawk, left the NFL, he was so articulate, a very, very bright, intelligent guy, and he had a lot to offer off the field. And I was really surprised that he didn't go into either an analyst position or maybe something, even in local politics, because he was very involved in the community. He really had a lot to do with in the Seattle area. His foundation was phenomenal, in working with kids. And so he had stuff going on up there at the VMAC, and so every time I would hear about some foundation stuff, I try to reach out to him. I really want him to share his story. So sometime you run into him, just say, he needs to do All Access Live. There's a lot that I want people to know about the depth behind Doug Baldwin. Then he's not just number 89, man. You're not just a phenomenal Super Bowl winning champion football player, man. He's more than just a pretty face,
Yeah, he's a champion of life, and I mean he's done some awesome stuff, and there's a great family first center literally right around the corner from my house that he helped create and put in the community there that gives resources that is needed right by where I live, and it's awesome that we played to help open it, and so and I know it was a great support for him, and he just continues to do good things, and I don't think we've seen the last of Doug Baldwin. Let's put it that way.
The coolest thing about it is that he helped open that facility. You don't hear about it. He's not asking for press, right? So even when he does work in the foundation, you don't hear the PR engines saying, "Look at all the great things Doug's doing." I love seeing that. And honestly, I mean, I would say the same thing about you. You know, I got Tyler. Like Tyler's like my favorite current player, man. And Tyler's out in the community doing this kind of stuff too. The Hawks, I really do love seeing stuff off the field. I love seeing what our players are doing, and I, you know, you guys, I would consider like the Blue Thunder to be as pivotal and profound an impact on the community as the team. You know, it's bigger now, right? How many members in the Thunder do you have?
We've got 29 this year. I think
29.
we're probably about the biggest we'll be for the foreseeable future. At one point, we did blow up to like 36.
I know, I remember.
And it was supremely massive. And but I think where we are now is a good number for us to sustain and maintain the quality that we are expecting of the ensemble now. I mean, the great irony, right, is I literally had a conversation about 2 years ago with one of the Seahawks front office lawyers, and we were talking, as we developed our performance agreement contract. And he's like, so, how do you feel about the crew and how do you feel about your skills? And I said, well, let's put it this way. No one's asking Coach Carroll to go cover DK Metcalf, right?
Right. Yeah. Although,
and he's like, that's a fair point. And I said, hey, I got the knowledge, I've got the skills, but I don't have to go out and perform to still coach them effectively, know. But I mean, the talent level of this group is so much higher than when we started, and we keep finding ways to still grow the quality, which I'm thankful for. All of my assistant directors over the years. They've all been pivotal in how we have shaped the group and grown, and supporting the vision that I have, but also making sure that we have the quality of musicianship and performance. And so it's been a fun collaborative thing, and I also run my drum line differently than a lot of other people. It's not my show; it's our show. Everybody has voice, everybody brings something different to the table, and I love being that melting pot, similar to our city. Our city is a great melting pot of different cultures and different vibes, and to be that same thing ourselves is reflective of our impact to our fans. And it plays in our music that we select and write, and everything is created in-house. We don't buy anybody else's products. It's all written by members or arranged from members. We do play some cover songs, we do play some beats that are somewhat played by other people, but we make our own riff on them. So it's and we try and celebrate it. It's not about ripping someone off, but we've got a couple beats that are similar to what some HBCU styles are played, as well as the heavy metal style, as well as the hip hop style. And I think that just adds to what draws people in and makes it a fun thing to engage with on game day and out in the community.
It's beautiful, man. What would you say if you could sort of like chronicle the timeline? What is an experience what is the Blue Thunder experience from start to finish on game day?
Well, I mean, depends on if we're involved in halftime, I think is probably the critical component, because if we're involved in halftime, the call time is earlier than if we are just doing our normal game day that doesn't involve an element of halftime. But we get in the equipment room, make sure we get a fresh tune on all the drums, cymbals, they just check their straps, make sure they're not splitting, tearing, or otherwise. We'll get out there, we'll go do a sound check on the field, sound check in the upper deck. Sometimes we'll do, so might be one, might be both. Just depends on the day. Then we come back in, get everybody attired and what we're going to wear based off the weather, because it could change by the minute, as you know. Right. And then we'll run outside, and about 30 minutes, 40 minutes ahead of gates opening, we start warming up in the north lot. So a lot of fans are starting to trickle in from light rail, from some of the parking lot areas around the north end of the stadium, and they'll stop by, catch us as we do our thing there, and then we go from there over to where the gates open, and we play at the outside part of the stadium, the northwest corner. Fans come in, gates open, we give a good 20-25 minute show. this year we're going into the Muckleshoot Plaza, which is the North Plaza. We'll play in there for a little bit before we go out and march down to the southwest corner of the events, outside the event center. We'll play there for 15-minute set, and then we go inside the event center into what is now called the Ticketmaster tailgate.
Okay.
Play on stage there, and that's about an hour and change before kickoff. So that's our final performance typically, and then we'll go back of house, come back into the equipment room if we're going to do an attire change, or if need to work on anybody split a head, anybody broke sticks, anybody broke a strap, whatever, quick water break, and then we get ready for pregame on the field and play pregame on the field. Come off. We're kind of the first thing outside of the tell the tale that kind of sets the tempo for game day. So, I think we have a pretty critical component of kicking off the game day right with some juice and energy. Then it's all downhill from there. Kickoff happens. We play in the upper deck and the flag deck in either the first quarter or second quarter usually. And then if we have part of halftime, we're back down on the field. Another timeout to celebrate salute to service. One of my favorite moments is honoring the armed forces members, especially someone who's done some amazing bravery or been involved in some penultimate moments in our military's history. I'm a son of a former Army veteran, so it's critical to me. And it's also very much part of our community here in Washington, Western Washington. We have so many military bases, and I love the way our team integrates and supports that and element of our community. And then we wait at that point, we're pretty much done. We get a break and enjoy the fourth quarter for the most part. And hopefully we win, because when we win, we go marching out and we play a full 30-minute set after the game at the northwest corner. And usually that is where all the energy gets expended.
Man, it's amazing.
And it's not just a couple hundred people. Sometimes it's 2, 3, up to 5,000 fans encircle the drumline. And just it becomes this big love fest because we just won the game, and just the energy is palpable. And then we pack it up. We call it a day. It's usually an 8 to 8.5 hour day of drumming and walking. And we get our steps in, we get our movement in, but we walk out, and then we typically go find a place to have some food and a drink as we wait for traffic to die down.
Oh yeah, man. I it's one of my favorite experiences. A lot of times I'll leave the south end of the stadium, but I like to get up to where you're at after a game just so I can watch the drumline. And there's a lot of engagement that you've got with the fans there too. I love it when like kids are there, and you guys will really hype it up for the kids when the kids are, because I see them, their eyes light up. That these little young boy and girl, like just adoring fans are watching you guys play. You're changing kids right at that moment. They're deciding that may be something they want to do for the rest of their life. They may have gone to the game and watched athletes and got excited about football, but they're just as excited about playing drums, after watching you guys too. So like every single week I watch lives being changed. It's a beautiful thing, man. I really, as a fan of drums and what drums do and how they make you feel, how they move you, it's that much bigger when your ensemble is out there. You really do help sort of celebrate the magic of that community. So I'm proud of you. And I think it's incredible to me that 21 years later and 16 years later, you made Sounders just, that much bigger than they already were. 21 years later, the Seahawks Blue Thunder is a viable part of this, the Seattle Seahawks and experience that you'd have. And outside the games, I mean, the community, you've really done a lot of amazing things. So I'm just proud to really know who you are, man. We talked offline about you and your dedication to your family. I know, man, you're such a focused dad. Your two boys are a huge part of your life, and you're really dedicated husband. So props to you and their sacrifice for giving up dad quite a bit of time, right? When you've given to your community. So, I think we're all fortunate that you've been able to find balance and be able to do all that. How you find balance, I don't know. That it really. And are you still gigging
No
quite a
sleep.
bit? Yeah,
No
that's the
sleep.
key. Yeah, I'm familiar with that. Are you gigging quite a bit outside this with your band?
No, I hung up the heavy metal band shoes about 7-8 years ago. I've done some one-off stuff here and there, learned sets with bands and played a couple mercenary style gigs, as I call them. Learn 20 songs and then go play a show. Learn in a couple days and play a show or two. I've done some